Then distribute your resume using the means that the employers prefer. So it could be whether the employer wants it online, whether he wants it to go and you to go on the website and apply, right? It could be sometimes employers want you to go directly to their website and apply over there. There might be a link, there might be an application form, there might be a email ID which will be mentioned over there. So whatever he prefers, you have to do that. That is online, or it could be they could tell you to come down personally and apply your CV. So this is very important when it comes to writing your effective resume, planning, writing your resume, that is in terms of content and information, and completing your resume, checking your resume, making sure it's proofread, error-free basically, and it is going to be complete. All right. So now we know definitely about career, that we have talked about career planning. We've talked about career goals, how we went ahead. Basically, we went with introduction to career. What is your career, goals and objectives? On the basis of your goals and objectives, your career planning is done, right? And which are the important steps for you to find an opportunity? In that, one of the important steps was basically CV also, writing a summary of you. So we studied about CV also now. How CV and resume are very important, right? How resume will make a long-lasting impression, and which are the different types of resume, right? Very important to select the right kind of resume. And having an effective resume, we have the necessary steps. Now, that also is done. Now you will be called for an interview, right? So CV also is done now. Now comes the interview process, right? What is an interview basically? Interview in general terms, when we talk about it, talks about a face-to-face interaction, right? When we talk about an interview, it talks about the face-to-face interaction, right? So here the interviewer and the interviewee are going to be present. So what is the objective of an interview, right? The objective of an interview is going to be now from the employer perspective and from the employee perspective. Employer perspective, what is the objective of the interview? To find the right talent to fill the position, right? That is the interviewer's objective. That is to find the right talent, place the right talent, right? So that he can perform the duties. Whereas what is your objective? Personal objective, that you have to show the necessary skills and make sure that your goals and capabilities match with the current position. That is your personal objective. So the meaning of the term interview is actually, the term interview stands for meeting with an objective. And this meeting with an objective is from both the ways, right? The first one is from the interviewer's way. That is where he needs to find the right talent, right? He has to fill the right position. Whereas when it comes to the personal objective, when you are applying, you are doing this because you want to find the right job for yourself, which will match your goals and your capabilities. So definitely we know that interview is, a process wherein an employee will be evaluated, right? The employee will be assessed, the employee will be monitored, his progress will be seen, right? Also, we see how this interview will help to know whether the applicant is actually suitable, because from the resume and from the CV, sometimes you don't come to know too much. That is the purpose of the interview, further communication. So when you go for the interview, you come to know whether the job for this particular position, whether the applicant or the candidate is suitable or not. Now, before you go for the interview, what do you need to do before you go for the interview? I told you already, making sure your CV is complete, right? Proofread your CV, making sure your CV is complete. Your CV and your application or your covering letter has to be there. Second, knowing about the company, right? Try to know about the company. As I told you already, know about the company more. Go on the company's website. Who is the co-founder? Who are the partners involved? What is the progress of the company over the years? What kind of products and services they're dealing into? Get a general idea about the company at least. You definitely want to know what you're dealing into. आप किसमें हाथ डाल रहे, आपको पता होना चाहिए what you're dealing into. You can't just go with a blank face where you've just gone for the interview, right? So this will create confidence. This will make you more confident when you're facing the interview, because you know your CV is up to date. You know you have knowledge about the company, the products and services, right? About the history, about the position, about the responsibilities. So this is very much important, basic when you go for before you go for the interview. Now, definitely we have various types of interviews, right? We have various types of interviews. The common type of interviews, there's a very common types of interviews: structured versus unstructured. A structured interview is a more formal interview, right? Unstructured interview is more like an open-ended interview or a casual interview. First, we'll come to structured interview. So when we talk about structured interview, it's a formal interview, a formal setting, a formal environment, right? The questions to be asked for the interview are prepared in advance, right? The questions which are going to be asked are prepared in advance basically over here. Then we also see that how it is taking place in a formal setting over here specifically, and there's no scope for modification over here. It is very much that these are the questions what we are going to be asking you in an interview. Unstructured, or it could be open ended interviews, are those interviews where on the basis of your responses, अगर candidate जो response दे रहा है, on the basis of the candidate's responses, you can modify the questions as well. So यहाँ पर questions are not prepared in advance. Here the questions are not prepared in advance. So unstructured interview is an open-ended interview. It is more of a casual interview also, you can call it, where the questions are not prepared in advance on the basis of the responses of the candidates. How the candidate is responding to you. What are his views and opinions? You can start modifying the questions spontaneously on the spot. That is called as an unstructured interview. Next, we have panel interviews and we have group interviews. So when we talk about panel interviews and group interviews, first panel interviews, a group of interviewers, right? Where you see, when it comes to a panel interview, we have a not one person interviewing. We have a 2, 3, 4 interviewing. For example, if I'm applying for a university position, right? If I'm applying for a university job or a teaching assistant professor job, who is going to be in the panel? The panel will comprise of the head of department. First of all, the order should be the management representative or the management person would be there in the interview. Then it would be the principal who's going to be there. It could also be the vice principal, right? It could further be the HOD, that is the head of department, could be present in the interview. Then we could have the subject expert in the interview as well. And we could have a outside representative, a teacher or a professor from another college also, who's come down basically for the evaluation process. So panel interview, you will not have one person interviewing you. You have a group of people interviewing you. And I gave you the example where there could be a management person, there could be a principal, vice principal, there could be a subject expert, there could be an HOD basically over here. Outside representative could also be there. So that is coming in panel interview. Group interviews, where you are going to assess a group of people together. When we talk about group interviews, group discussions, right? We talk about how there are going to be a group of people who are going to be there. 10 candidates will be there. And then we're going to monitor and evaluate the behavior and the perceptions of these 10 together. It is not a face-to-face interview. It is basically a group interview. That is where there are going to be a group of candidates together who are going to be evaluated by one person or two people. That is called as a group interview. Further, we go ahead and we see the third, which is a combination. It could be classified as different types, like situational interview, working interview, right? It could be a situational interview, it could be a working interview, or it could be a stress interview, right? Situational, hypothetical situation. आपको एक situation create करके दिया है, and how you will behave, how you will act in that situation, that is called as a situational interview. So situational interview, hypothetical situation. A situation may be created over here. And what is your behavior and how you will act in that situation. That is talking about the situational interview. Further, we have working interview, where again, the work scenario, the current work environment, right? For example, I could give you a product and I could ask you to give me a name for the product. I could ask you for the techniques of marketing the product, right? Engaging basically. So working interview talks about brainstorming, where you brainstorm, where you think of creativity, where you think of ideas basically, right? They might give you with some case study, they might give you with some work environment situation where what will you do in the situation that is being observed. Then we have last one, stress interview, which talks about definitely here the role of the interviewer is purposely to put you in a stressful situation. He will purposely try to create anxiety. He will try to create, how will you respond in a particular situation? He will constantly interrupt you. He will criticize you, right? You might feel that this is not going my way. The interview is not going my way. But in this, what will happen is that the interviewer will constantly criticize you, interrupt you, stop you, right? He might say something which is rude also, it might be, right? But it is just to see how you will react in a particular situation, in a particular stressful situation, and how will you cope with it. Will you lose your calm? Are you patient? Are you tolerant? Are you open to listening? Right? That is what are the parameters, what they look into when it comes to stress interviews. So first one we had structured, where we have the questions prepared, where we definitely have a formal setting, formal environment. Unstructured, where definitely we see that you will see where the questions are not prepared in advance. It might be a little casual, it might be open-ended, where we see that how the responses, on the base of the responses, it can be, the questions can be modified. Then you have panel interview, where you have a group of people sitting in who are evaluating you, and you have group interviews where there are a group of candidates, 10 candidates together or 5 candidates together, and they're evaluating you. Then you have situational, which is called as hypothetical. Working, where brainstorming, case study, real life environment situation might also be created. And stress interview, where you are going to be put under anxiety, constant stress, pressure, how you'll respond. You'll be constantly interrupted, you'll be stopped. That is going to be the way stress interviews take place. So these are the common types of interview. Very important, the 6 tasks before when it comes to preparing for the interview. Which are the important things to be kept in mind when you're going for preparing for a job interview, right? Which are the important things to be kept in mind when it comes to your job, successful job interview? So definitely, when we talk about the first one, right, learning about the organization and learning about the organization. Very important is learning about what organization you're dealing into, as we already studied, and who is going to be your interviewers, right? What is their background? So definitely, what you could do is you could research again over here, right? You can go on the company website, where you will investigate, you will inquire more about the organization, right? So what is basically to what you can look at and where you can learn from is the company website, right? So that comes when it comes to the organization perspective, that you can learn from the organization through their website, through their periodicals, through their journals, through their articles. Basically, all this is basically learning about your organization, right? Then what you want to learn about the organization, again, that what products they are dealing into, right? What is the location, right? What is which branches do they have, right? Do they have options abroad as well in terms of location? What are their products and services basically, right? What is the financial position about it, the financial aspect about the company, right? Then we also see what are the growth prospects which are going to be there for you. So this is basically about learning more about the organization. So where you can learn? Online, go to their website, through their periodicals, through their journals, through their articles. What to learn about is the company's founder, co-founder, You can talk about the products and services, what they're dealing into, about how they've grown over a period of time, growth aspects, what are the growth aspects, what are the financial aspects. That is basically talking about learning about the organization and the interview process. Next, definitely we talk about planning in terms of thinking ahead about the questions. What questions could be asked, right? When you talk about planning, what questions could be asked? That is both the ways, planning for the employer's questions and planning questions of your own. Definitely, employers are going to ask you some questions, right? And definitely you will have some questions in the interview to ask to the employer. Correct? So when you talk about planning questions, what are the questions you are going to be asking about, right? It could be planning questions about the, when you're talking about the employer's questions, what are the questions the employers can ask you? Basic questions. Tell me about your strengths and weaknesses. This is a very common question which is asked, right? Tell me something about yourself. This is again a very commonly question. The first question where they ask is, tell me something about yourself. Tell me about your strengths and weaknesses, right? Then tell me about your long-term goals. This is something which will be from the employer's side, definitely, right? Then you can also talk about your own questions. What would be your own questions? Inquiring more about the role and responsibilities of the job aspect, right? So here we definitely want to see, put your attention to when it comes to that. What are the roles and responsibilities? What is going to be a designation of your job? What is going to be your job position and title? Designation, your major roles and responsibilities. If you have any questions with regards to joining period, right? With regards to your financial, when it comes to the negotiation part also over here. So these are all the questions what the employee can ask the employer. So thinking ahead of the questions talks about planning questions for the planning about the questions which the employer will ask you and what questions you can possibly ask to the employer. Next we have is boosting your confidence. Definitely, you have to make sure that your confidence is the best smile you can wear, right? When you have a proper CV, I told you, when you are confident enough, your CV is up to date, you have the skill set, you have been called for the interview because there's something in you. They consider you. Why? Because they feel you are possibly a potential candidate. So you have to tell yourself that I am suitable, I am considered because I am fit for this position. I have the skills. You have to be aware of yourself. So definitely how your confidence will be good when you are confident in terms of your skills, in terms of your background, your educational background, your work experience, and also in terms of the grooming and appearance aspect. When you go for an interview, you definitely want to go about your 100%. You want to go prepared. You want to go be well groomed. So this is something which you have to definitely focus on, and you have to focus also on your you have to make sure you show your charm. You make sure you show your personality. When I talk about confidence, it talks about showing your charm. It talks about showing your personality. It talks about your sense of humor. It talks about your presence of mind. So this is what boosting your confidence talks about. Then we go ahead with polishing your interview style, right? Definitely, when we talk about polishing your interview style, definitely we talk about confidence and competence. When you talk about polishing your interview style, how you'll become more confident when you have the necessary skills, you have the competence in you, and definitely you talk about confidence. So polish karna kaise? Mock interviews, right? How will you do it? Mock interviews. You will undertake mock interviews online. There are options where you can go online and you can appear for mock interviews. You can record your interview also, right? When you talk about your mock interview, you can record your entire mock interview, and you can, from your phone or from your laptop or your tablet, whatever you have. Why you can record it? So you can go through it and you can see the areas or the place where you need to focus on and need to improve on. So polishing your interview style talks about what? It talks about mock interviews. You can have a mock interview online. You can have a mock interview with your friends. You can try with your family. You can practice yourself in the mirror, and you can record this entire process. When you record this entire process, it will give you an understanding, a better understanding of exactly where you stand, what are the areas you need to work on, and which are the areas you have to focus on. Right? Then you have presenting a professional image. Definitely, when you go for the interview, you want to be professional. You want to, your appearance and your grooming plays a very important role. You want to go tip top. You want to go up to date, right? When it comes to your shoes, the way you're dressed up, your hair, basically, right? These are some of the tips which you need to keep in mind, that you need to be professionally very appealing, right? So going on time, being very punctual, having more copies of your CV, taking your photograph and going, being ready, complete and ready in every aspect. So that is talking about presenting a professional image. And last one, be ready when you arrive. That is being confident, being complete in terms of your resume copies, in terms of your punctuality. And the last point basically talks about the interview process when you will meet the person face to face, right? Being ready means complete, going on time, taking CV copies, taking your passport photographs, right? Asking for references. They will be asking for references. They might check. A lot of investigation will be done over here. So you have to be ready when it comes to the interview in every aspect. So this is the very important 6 tasks when it comes to preparing for a job interview, where you can learn about the organization, you can research, you can plan what kind of questions will the employer ask and what you need to ask. You need to boost your confidence, right? Smile is you need to be a little smiling, appealing, polish your interview style basically by conducting mock interviews, practicing, basically rehearsing, create a professional image when it comes to your appearance, your clothing, your punctuality, right? The ethics, the code of conduct, and finally, be ready when you arrive. So this is something which you definitely need to work on when you prepare for an interview. This is some of the do's and don'ts of an interview. Groom yourself well, definitely. You have to show enthusiasm. You have to show excitement. You have to show interest, that you are interested in this job. You have to show your passion, right? So when it comes to yourself, you have to show your enthusiasm, you're passionate, you're interested. Always carry extra copies of your resume. Smile. It's the best way to show you're confident. Be polite, stand by your point, and be assertive, right? Be always truthful. Do not lie or do not make up stories when it comes to interviews. Try to be as transparent as possible and maintain an eye contact throughout while you're talking to the interviewer. Further, don'ts. Which are the don'ts which you need to keep in mind? First of all, don't show that you know it all attitude. You know, we have this know it all attitude. I know everything. You have this something in yourself which you feel like, मुझे तो सब पता है, मुझे सब आता है. That attitude shows it. When you walk in the room, your personality should talk. But when you walk in the room, your attitude should not be such whether, you don't get that vibe from that person. So definitely do not demonstrate your overconfidence. Let the interviewer complete the question. Give time to the interviewer to complete the question, and then you answer. Don't interrupt while the interviewer is talking, right? Don't talk continuously. You have to have necessary listening skills also. Don't get into an argument or a political debate. It has to be a discussion. It can't be a debate. There might be sometimes controversial topics they might ask about in certain interviews, or about general awareness. Does not mean that you have to be getting into a debate or an argument. Like an argument, you can talk about debating, but in a discussion manner. Again, don't fidget with your tie. If it's not comfortable, make sure you don't wear a tie. If you're wearing a tie, make sure you don't fiddle with your tie. You don't use the pen and make noise with the pen. You don't tap your hands on the table. You don't tap your legs from down, right? So this is what are some of the do's and don'ts when it comes to an interview. Now we have come to the last part of the session, that is the presentation aspect, right? So presentations are something which definitely we look into college also, right? College में हम लोग ज़्यादा presentations, normally we see that we don't have too many presentations when it comes to college. When it comes to your college life, yes. When it comes to your work life, yes, there are more presentations. You have to pitch to the clients, right? You have to get business, right? For that, you have to have the presentation skills and the effective presentation as well. So presentation talks about communicating information, right? Presentation talks about the information which you want to present in front of your audience. So what information do you want to present in front of the audience? That is very important. And from your research part to your non-verbal communication, all will be included in presentation. Before any presentation, everybody has nervous. Everybody will have that anxious feeling. It's for interviews. We see how we have jittery feeling, how we have that we are conscious, how we feel nervous, how we start sweating. That is very normal. But what are the ways where you can reduce this anxiety, where you can reduce this fear, right? There are ways where you can reduce this fear, where you can reduce your anxiety, and you can become more confident as well. Definitely, when it comes to presentations, we see how in our business world, communication may presentations play a very important role. Why? Because giving high quality presentations is very important, right? Your presentation has to be very appealing and to the point, and it has to have the adequate information as well. So presentation needs to be high quality, because you know that it is a very important event which is going to be there when it comes to your clients or your dealers or your suppliers, whoever it might be. The purpose of your presentation is to convince the audience. The purpose is to inform and to convince the audience, and so that you get the client, you can get business from the client, and you can collaborate with the client as well. So that is what we talk about presentation in general, the term presentation. So presentation, it talks about the information you want to communicate. What kind of information you want to communicate? What information should be present while your communication? Like what are the necessary things should be there in the presentation, right? So for this, a high quality presentation you have to create, and this presentation will help you to inform you, to create awareness, to persuade, to convince your audience, and get you the business and get you clients, and you can collaborate with the client as well. There's a 3-step process in presentation also. There's a 3-step process in presentation also. Plan, write, complete. Same like resume, right? When we saw resume also, we saw a process: planning your resume, writing your resume, and completing your resume. So in presentation, you need to plan your presentation, right? How many slides? When you talk about presentation planning, how many slides are going to be there, right? How many hours are going to be there for this presentation? How much time is going to be devoted to per presentation, per slide, sorry. How much time you will devote to per slide, right? Then what is the audience you are going to be catering to? According to that, you will modify your presentation. What language has to be used in the presentation? It has to be bias free also. The language, what you will use, what information has to be there. So that is the planning aspect. Then comes the presentation writing aspect. Writing, to make sure that your presentation is complete. How it is going to be complete? When you are going to write clear information, concise information, to the point information, showing statistics, showing figures, showing your achievements, showing your historical progress in terms of histograms, in terms of pie charts. You can show your progress in the financial years. You can show about how you have succeeded. So you have to use creativity when it comes to your presentation, right? You have to, it does not need to have only content. अगर सिर्फ content रहेगा कोई भी presentation में तो boring हो जाता है. Appealing होना चाहिए. How you can make it appealing? Visually appealing, putting pictures, making it a little colorful, right? Not too much of use of colors, but yes, some colors you can use. Then you can talk about how to definitely use histograms, statistical figures, using tables. This will all add on to your presentation. And finally, you will proofread your presentation and you will complete your presentation. You will see practice also, where you will see that every slide is adequate time is given to every slide, and the time frame is going to be start time and end time should also be as per what you have decided. So presentation skills, 3-step process: planning, writing, completing. Planning, definitely who is your audience, what information, right? How much time to every for the presentation, how much time for every slide, right? What do you want the audience to take back home from this presentation? That is also going to be a part of planning. And then we come to writing and completing aspect. So definitely when we talk about presentations, we see there are two important aspects. We see one is creating a PPT, which we spoke about, and one is going to be presenting a PPT. So when it comes to presentation skills, creating is equally important as much as presenting, right? So both are very important when it comes to creating an impact on your audience. So how do you want to create an impact? First, you want to give out proper information, visually appealing, and then the person who is delivering, the person who is going to pitch, that person has the necessary skills and is confident so that you can bag the client. You can bag the client's order as well. These are the necessary presentation skills which are required, right? First is planning. We have already done about planning. Next is preparing, right? Next is practicing, right? And the last one is presenting. Planning, what you want to present, what is going to be your start time, your end time, what are the necessary things to be put in this PPT, what should the audience take back home from this PPT? That is planning. Preparing, where you'll start preparing your presentation in terms of you want the histograms, showing your progress report, your charts, you know. Next is practicing. Definitely presentations you have to practice. Practice makes a man more confident. Practice will make you more confident. So be it practicing is very important when it comes to your presentation, because you can practice, like as I told you, when you go for an interview, we have mock interviews. So presentation also, you will have a group, maybe you can practice with the group, right? You can practice, you can see whether you're starting on time, you're finishing on time, right? If you're fumbling in between, right? What area you need to focus on. So practice will come to know, you'll come to know whether you're achieving your target as per the time in terms of time aspect, and also that you are focusing on the areas where you need to improve. And finally comes your presentation skills. So what are the steps? Planning, preparation, preparation also in terms of the resources from where you need to get the data, resources, practicing, right? Practicing with your group or practicing individually is equally important. And finally comes the presentation. When you go to present, suppose I go to present to a client, right? So what do we do when it comes to introduction? You introduce yourself and your company, right? Because you'll be talking on behalf of your company. You are an employee for the company. You will be talking a part. It takes pride for you to talk about the company. So when you're pitching, when you're giving a presentation, you will talk about introducing yourself. You will talk about introducing your company. You will exchange cards basically initially. You will ask about their background and make them feel important so that you can build a rapport. Once the rapport is created, once that trust and confidence is created, then definitely it will be beneficial for you. So this is the introduction basically, which talks about introducing yourself, about your company, exchanging your cards, creating that rapport, creating an environment of trust and confidence. In the last slide for today's session, we have definitely about the do's and don'ts of a presentation, right? When we talk about the do's and don'ts of a presentation, what are the do's? Maintaining eye contact, right? Maintaining eye contact with everybody present. You cannot look into one person's eye and talk. Because when you're presenting, you'll be presenting to a board members. You'll be presenting to a larger audience also. So there you have to maintain eye contact with everybody, have a glance with everybody, not just to one person or one particular object. Use appropriate body language, your hand gestures, right? When it comes to your body language, and when it comes to your language, what kind of language you have to use? Simple language, basic language. You studied your audience. आपको पता है आपकी audience कौन है. So accordingly, you can modify your language, right? Posture. How posture? When you're communicating, you cannot be slouching. You have to be erect. Your back posture, your body language shows basically the zeal, shows the confidence level, and shows basically how interactive you can be and how badly you want that this should materialize and this we should get this client to our business. So using eye contact, appropriate body language, and posture is very important. Voice modulation, where to stop, where you need to become loud, when I'm going loud, where I need to talk, where I need to emphasize and take a pause, right? Because it is an important topic. I need to take a pause or emphasize, okay, this is really important. So I'm emphasizing on what is important. So your loudness, to what level, pitch, where it should go high, where it should be low, and where you need to stop and take a pause so that the audience can understand and grasp what you are saying. Present confidently, use space, the moment which is around you. Just don't talk from one position. You can use the space which is around you, come ahead, go back and forth, basically, use your hand gestures appropriately, and give time to the audience to ask you questions. So this is the do's of your presentation, and the don'ts is talk at a moderate, steady speed. Don't talk too fast. Don't talk too slow. When you talk too fast, there's no clarity. The audience will not understand. When you talk too slow, it becomes very boring. It shows very dull. It shows a lot of dullness, So you have to talk at a proper speed, not too fast, not too slow. Don't read from the slides. Presentation, you are going to give them a rough blueprint also. You're going to give them a document in a file, basically, where what you're going to be covering in the presentation. So they know what you're covering in the presentation. To avoid reading from the slide. Right now I am doing it because this is what the do's and don'ts talk about. But when it comes to reading, don't read full lines, full paragraphs. You have to explain the pointers. Explain the pointers in your own words and elaborate yourself, right? Then don't get fumble up in the sentences. Don't use okay. That's basically showing that you're not very prepared. So try avoiding. I know it's not possible completely, but we try not to use or too much of in the sentences, right? Then again, do not fidget with your, when it comes to your hair or when it comes to your hands, and do not use any kind of slang language and or any kind of inappropriate language which will give a different meaning or a different interpretation. So you need to be prepared. You need to be confident. And this is all about my today's session, which speaks about, career planning. It talks about resume. It talks about interview skills, what you need to do before you go for an interview. And it talks about the do's and don'ts of a presentation. So wishing you all the very best. And I hope you could take some tips and some tricks. And I could definitely make you aware of the current scenario. And I hope this will make an impact. So all the best to everybody. And that's all from my end, sir.
Thank you very much, sir. Thank you very much personally also, and on behalf of the B.L. Amlani College of Commerce and Economics, and also on behalf of all the participants. We really thought that your session was very useful, practical, from career planning to building resume to interview and presentation. This will also help me personally to give interviews in future. And I think this is very, very practical subject. Those students who want to make career, pursue career, those who are academic, they face these problems, these things in day-to-day life.
Yes, sir.
So this was very helpful and very simple, sophisticated language that I appreciate. And thank you very much once again.
Thank you so
And
much, sir. Thank you to the college, to the principal, sir, and the NCW for giving me this opportunity and coming around everybody and presenting my knowledge. And I hope this will make an impact on everybody, for the people who are appearing, the students as well, and for all those who are appearing for interviews.
yes, sir, yes,
It will
sir.
help to build their professional skills. Thank you
It
so
will
much.
definitely. Thank you, sir. You can leave the meeting now.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Yeah.